raise a glass to the past, present, and future you with actress Danielle Moné Truitt as she dives into the beautiful complexities of life's journey through real, transparent conversation. All the women I've been made me into.
Hey y'all, I am Danielle Moné Truitt, and welcome to All the Women I've Been podcast, where we raise a glass to the past, present, and future you through raw, real conversation about our journeys in life, where we've been, who we are, and who we want to become. I'm really excited to start this journey with you guys. This is my first podcast episode, and I am super proud of myself, okay? Today, to help me with this first episode, is someone who I love very, very much because she is my cousin and my god sister. Her name is Olivia Eubanks, and she is a boss in her own right, and I'm just so excited to start this journey with her and with you all. So get excited for all the women I've been. Yay! You're here!
My Pisces twin.
Thank you for being here. Yes. I'm super excited.
I'm so excited. Yeah. I know Danielle Moné Truitt, but the world needs to know who Danielle Moné Truitt is. Please tell us.
Oh my gosh. You know what? It's always funny to get this question because I feel like I'm still figuring out who I am. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even though I've been with myself my whole life. I mean, I can say, Danielle Moné Truitt is a woman. She's a daughter. She's a mother. Mm-hmm. She's a sister. She's an actress. She is a force to be reckoned with. She is resilient. She's creative. She's fun. She's crazy. She ain't no joke. But I think, the part of the reason why I wanted to do this podcast is because we are all still developing and, becoming more of who we are, mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard for me to say exactly who I am. I just know that in the last few years, I've become really interested in finding out
right.
who it is I am in certain seasons of my life. Right. And I know years ago, I was a different version of myself.
Right.
I feel like I don't feel like I'm a new person per se, but I am in a completely different season of my life. Like, my life 10 years ago looks nothing like it looks right now.
Yeah.
And that came through some great things and some terrible things.
Right, and that basically brings us back to the title.
Yeah.
To even think about all the women you've been in your 20s, your 30s, and now you're in your 40s. Tell me about this title, all the women that you've been, and also all the women that you've been in your craft. We know Drill, Keisha, Sergeant Bell, we know Rebel. You got so many women you've been there, but also women you've been in your personal life.
I saw this poem called I've Been 1,000 Different Women on Instagram by Emery Hall, and it just really spoke to me. And so I'll read a little bit of it, or I'll read it for the people. Make peace with all the women you once were. Lay flowers at their feet. Offer them incense and honey and forgiveness. Honor them and give them your silence. Listen. Bless them and let them be. For they are the bones of the temples you now sit in. For they are the rivers of wisdom leading you toward the sea. I have been 1,000 different women. So when I read that, I was like, who? Like, oh my God. Like, it just really resonated with me, Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times when you have been through a lot in your life and you come to a certain point, it's very easy to look back at yourself in your 20s and be like,
yes,
what was she thinking?
Like, I'm in my 20s now, I can imagine.
Right. You're like, what was she thinking?
Yeah.
And you kind of put yourself down for where you were at that time in your life. And I think the older you get, you miss certain aspects of who you were at that time in your life. And you start to realize that without the mistakes and the fumbles that you made in your 20s, when you were that version of yourself, you would not have become who you are today.
Right.
And because I have made several mistakes throughout my life, I see how much they've taught me, and I see how wise I am now, and I see that without those things, I wouldn't be who I am today. Right. So when it said, like, it said, listen, I think that really touched me when it's, listen to those women from your past. Right. The reasons why they made the decisions, I made at that time. What was I feeling? What was I going through? What was I trying to work through within myself that caused me to do that or not do that? Or, that what things caused me to hide in a way that I don't hide anymore. Right. Sit with those things, and it says because those things are the bones of the temple you now sit in. Right. So it's for me to embrace those things about myself, about who I was, not to look down upon it and say like, oh, I'm so much better than I was then. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, mindset, right? No, I was dope then.
Yes, I'm just doper now.
I'm just doper now because of who I was then. Yeah. Like the apple seed is still an apple tree. Right. It is an apple tree. It's just in seed form, and it has to be put in the ground and watered and cultivated, and then it becomes what it always was, which was the apple tree. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So like through your 20s, your 30s and your 40s, if you can like take me through, what do you feel like now, some lessons you can like look back and you say that you've learned, or maybe things, I don't know, do you have regrets or do you not? Oh,
well, I know it's funny. People always say, I have no regrets. I have no regrets. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, I have regrets, but I also embrace everything that I did, went through, endured, experienced. Right. You know what I mean? So then in that sense, I don't have any regrets. You know what I mean? Because I know it brought me to who I am today. Yeah. But there's certain decisions I made that I wish I would have made a different decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all relate to
that. Like that's a human thing. To say that I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with every single decision I ever made in life. It's like, nah, like that's not real to me.
So through your 20s, 30s, and now here in 40s, tell me about each of those women.
So in my 20s, I think in my 20s, I was very unsure of myself. I grew up, I'm a PK. I grew up in a, I wouldn't say religious household, because my parents, I wouldn't label them as religious. But, they black parents. So it's just certain things you ain't finna be doing. And my dad was a pastor. So like anything I was doing came secondary to the ministry. So it was like, I had basketball practice, cheerleading practice. It didn't matter. Like you had to be a Bible study with the other 15 people that were there, Yeah. So, Christian home, black home. I was the oldest. So my parents are trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. The oldest child always kind of gets the worst of it. Yes. Because your parents don't know what they're doing.
Yes. You're the trial run before.
Exactly. Yeah. And so by the time I got to my 20s, I was very unsure of myself because my parents, they didn't really allow me to make decisions. Like all my decisions were made for me. Like This is what you're going to eat every day. This is what you're doing. Don't tell what, shut up. Like, what are you talking about? This is what's happening, and it didn't give me an opportunity to fail and to actually have agency over my own life and thoughts. Right. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I was always very concerned with what my parents thought, with what my other family thought of me, the decisions I was making. I was the oldest. I wanted to make the right decisions. Mm-hmm. Now, on the other hand, I was a teenage girl growing up, and I didn't want anybody to think I was making the wrong decisions, so I would just sneak and do the things that I wanted to do. If I wanted to go to the party, I'd call my cousin Yana and Jennifer and be like, can I come spend the night at your house? So I go to this party, Right. So I learned how to sneak, and I was very good at it, which is probably why I'm an actor now. Like, I was very good at, like, being this person. Yeah, being this person, knowing that I really felt this way or had this going on. So when I got into my 20s, I didn't know how to make decisions for myself. I wasn't sure of myself. I didn't know my own voice. I didn't know how to trust myself. But I craved independence. I needed to make my own decisions and be on my own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so in my 20s, I moved out of my parents' house. I was in college. I lived with my Nana. And my Nana, she was awesome. She's an awesome person. She's just amazing.
So
She's an
sweet.
amazing woman
Yes.
in general. And I just aspire at 87 years old, I pray that I am as beautiful and just grace, just full of beauty and grace like she is.
Yes.
But living with her was awesome because she treated me like an adult. She wasn't asking me where I was going.
Yeah.
She wasn't asking me when I was coming back. She wasn't worried about who I was talking to on the phone.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it's like
she
everything you
let
wanted.
me be a college student. She let me be an adult. And if I did something that she didn't like, she would say something. One time, you know, because I'm a 20-year-old, I came in through the back door, left the back door unlocked. You know, she gets up in the morning and she's like, "You gonna let the devil in on us?"
Sounds literally just like Nana.
I'm like, "Oh, I left the door unlocked." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she had a way of like, you know, she had a way of telling me I needed to do this or that without, but still giving me the agency to be an adult and figure it out, you know? And so I really appreciated that time that I lived with her. So yeah, I was in college. I was still dating my boyfriend from high school. He was in high school at the time and I was in college. And that was perfectly fine for me, you know, but of course I got to college and the guys are like, "You got a boyfriend?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What college does he go to?" And I'm like, "He's in high school." And they're like, "Your boyfriend in high school?" So they're like teasing me. I'm like, "Wait a minute, is this not like what?" You know? And so as the year went on, I was like, you know what? Like, I kind of want to have an opportunity to date, you know, and
For sure.
see what the world is about, you know? So I went through a breakup, you know, and I'm still just trying to navigate, find out who I am. In my 20s, I found my passion for acting. So I think that is a real, like, that's a huge part of who I am now.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that in my 20s, even though I was still trying to learn how to listen to my own voice and stuff like that, I'm happy that I was able to find something that I was passionate about and want to commit, you know, my life to pursuing it,
Right.
you know? So I can say that's one of the good things that happened, you know, in my
in your
20s.
20s, yeah.
In my 30s, I also got married at the end of my 20s, and I think part of me getting married at the end of my 20s, I had moved from Sacramento to LA to pursue acting. I reconnected with my high school sweetheart, and it was an exciting time for me, but it was also a scary time for me because I'm like, oh my God, I'm in LA. I don't know how I'm going to even do this, but I had enough faith and courage to move out here.
Yeah, exactly.
My now ex-husband is a good person. You know, I've known him most of my life at this time, and I felt safe with him, you know, and the community that he had and the church he was going to. So I kind of threw myself into his world
Right.
to help me not be so afraid to do life alone. And these are one of the things that you talk about, regrets or whatever. It's not a regret. I don't regret that.
Yeah.
But if I could look at my 20-year-old self now and talk to her now, I would say, you're good.
Yeah.
Have enough faith in yourself to know that not only does God got you, because he does,
Right.
but you also have everything you need inside of you to navigate this time in your life.
Oh, yeah.
You don't need to latch on to someone else for your stability. It's inside of you. I know you don't feel like it is, but I feel like I could have gone a different route and been fine, but I didn't. So I ended up getting married very quickly in my late 20s. And then when I got into my 30s, that's when I became a mother. You know, I had Jackson at 30 years old. I had Roosevelt at 33. I think I started to awaken a little bit more. I had a very difficult birthing experience with Jackson that kind of like threw my hormones out of whack, a little bit. And I experienced some things that I didn't think I would ever experience. Mm-hmm. And I think it kind of shook me in a way in my 30s that I hadn't been shaken in my 20s. Mm-hmm. And I started to just question a lot about myself and about my life and about my surroundings, about my family. In my 20s, I wasn't really questioning much.
Right.
In my 30s, I began to question things about myself, the people around me, my friendships, my family dynamics. And that was very scary to me, because then it was like, well, who am I? Right. If I'm questioning my faith in God, if I'm questioning whether this marriage is what I should have been doing, if I'm questioning, am I a good mother? If I'm questioning, is this the career path I should be taking? Because this shit is taking a long ass time. Like, what the fuck? Like, when I was in SAC, I was that chick. Yes. Like, I was like, yes. I was booking everything, right. And then I came to LA and like everybody's that chick. Yes. And I'm brown skinned, and at that time, light skinned women were it. Like, wasn't nobody even looking at you if you weren't light skinned. Yeah. So I was like, damn, am I ugly? Like, that was another question I had. Am I ugly? It was a lot of questioning in my 30s, and who am I? I think that question was resounding in my ear constantly. Who are you? Who are you? Mm-hmm. Do you matter? What are you doing? Like, those were the questions, that I couldn't get out of my head, So I think that was the majority of my 20s, of my 30s. Yeah, of my 30s was questioning who I am, trying different things out. Some things were not things I should have been trying because I was married, because I was a mom, because, or people would look at it and say, you shouldn't have been trying that out, But at the end of the day, I needed to do the things that I did. Yeah. And some of those things hurt myself, and some of them hurt people that I love, But when you're questioning so much, you have two choices. You can either bury those questions and ignore those questions and continue to suppress things, or you can explore those questions. And act on I wish, getting back to, I did it, what I wish I could have done in my 20s. Now, what I wish I could have done, what I wish I was emotionally mature enough to do in my 30s is be honest about the questions I was having, and to have conversations with those people that I loved and say, I'm not really sure about this or that. But I wasn't emotionally mature enough at that time in my life to have those conversations, to have those questions, and to talk about those questions and admit I was having those questions. I felt like, what will the world do if they know that I'm questioning those things? like people care that much. I mean, people care, but they don't care that much about what you're questioning, because they're questioning. Yeah. We're all Everyone questioning.
Is. That's the thing.
So anyway, and then in my 40s, which I'm only 2 years into my 40s, I think in my 40s has been a time of acceptance. Me accepting where I'm at, who I am, accepting the ugly parts of me. Because my whole life, I have been so hyper focused on being excellent at everything, being good at everything, and liking the fact that people think I'm good at things, 100%. And appearing a certain way because I don't want to make people uncomfortable, or I want people to like me, and now I don't give a shit about it as much.
That's
I'm
so
not,
freeing,
and it's a journey. So I can't say I'm 100% don't give a fuck about what people think. That's not true. Like, I do. And I have to remind myself, Danielle, it's not about what other people want. It's about what do you want? What makes you happy?
Right.
You know, I'm not going to live in the shadows of other people's expectations of me anymore, you know. So I think acceptance is a big part of my journey in my 40s so far.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us about your craft. So you started acting in your 20s.
Well, like 19, yeah,
19,
in college.
okay. Yeah, take us through that journey, because from the outside, you know, we can see all the great parts from Instagram and everything, but I know that there was a lot of down moments for you through acting. So kind of just take us through that journey.
Sure. Okay, so I got to college. I was a psychology major, and I took a theater class for fun. I have no idea why. Probably maybe because in high school I took a theater class, so I was a little intrigued by it. So I took the theater class, and about 2 weeks in, my professor pulled me to the side and asked if I was a theater major, and I told her no. I was a psychology major. She was like, well, you need to be a theater major. And I was like, excuse me? I said, well, I could do it as a minor. She was like, no, you need to do it as a major. Like, she was like, you have just a natural ability or whatever. She said, audition for this play that they're doing. Sons and Ancestors was like the black theater troupe on campus at Sac State. And they did like one black play a year. So she told me to audition for this play. It was called The America Play by Susie Laurie Parks. And I auditioned for that play. I got the lead role in the play. And just going through that experience, it was my first time like being the lead in a play, of course. And then just going through, starting from the table read to, you know, the first night, walking out on stage with a full set, costumes, makeup, and everything. And it was a remarkable experience for me. Like, it was a transformative moment in my life where I realized, like, oh, I really love this. Like, all the different aspects of it. I love being directed. I loved being able to I played a 60-year-old woman. What's funny is, a 60-year-old black woman does not look anything like what I made my makeup look like. I looked 100 years old.
Probably look old.
When I look back at those pictures, I'm like, what makeup was this?
Yeah.
The woman was 60. She was not 112. And that's literally what I looked like. Like, all the old, like the shading, and, you know, I like to draw. So I was very into the makeup thing, making myself look as old as possible. And now I look at my mom, who's 62.
Yes.
And I'm like,
those lines even exist.
So anyway, but I played this old woman. I had to put on a little fat suit, you know, because my little 19-year-old body didn't look like a 60-year-old woman. So just going through like that whole experience was really awesome for me. And I realized, like, okay, this is really what I want to do. And what's funny is, in my 20s, you know, there were so many things I had experienced as a child that I had not, traumas and things that I had not dealt with at all. Right. And when I look back now, when I think about like what made me choose acting, I think it was a way, at that time for me, it was a way for me to hide more. You know, I enjoyed being other people more than I enjoyed being myself at that time in my life, you know? I liked being able to say certain things that I wouldn't say, but I could say it through a character, you know?
Yeah.
And the thing that makes God so awesome is, you know, I was loving the fact that I could hide in these characters, but what I didn't realize is me choosing acting for a profession was actually the thing that was going to free me and help me become more vulnerable and face those things in my life. You know, I think I'm running from those things by hiding in these characters. And God is like, nah, like there's really no hiding when it comes to creativity. Right. Because God is the creator. So if he created us and he makes us to be creators, there's no way that you can hide from anything. Like, it's all about being vulnerable. It's all about acceptance. Like, that's what acting is, you know? So I'm happy that I chose this path for myself. But college, I was booking everything. You know, I was the only black woman in the department. And they would always throw me in the black play, but then I was like, well, no, I wanna be in what was it, Cabaret, and I want to do Medea, and I want to do Shakespeare, and so they had to start letting us, do some of those things, and I got a lot of, it was one of those things, like when you first start doing something, it's like you have this grace behind you where it's like you booking everything, you're killing it all, and you think it's always gonna be like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it ain't. So I graduated from college. I went to a state school. I wasn't in an MFA program like some of my colleagues. They were able to go to Yale and and be in schools like that, which is really awesome. But I didn't have that experience, and my school was like, okay, congratulations, bye. Like there's nothing. They're not offering you any help in your career after. So I had made, some connections with people in the community in Sacramento. So I did some community theater and stuff like that. And I did a play, and I remember I did it for free. And I remember saying like, well, the next play I do, I'm going to get paid. Like I'm not doing any more free plays. And the next play I did paid me $100.
Oh, that's it.
That's it. And I was like, well, I said I wasn't going to do it for free.
Yes.
So I did the play for $100, which I'm happy I did, because I met one of my lifelong friends now and co-collaborators on my one-woman play, Anthony Dewan, who didn't know me from nowhere, just thought that I was a great, actress or whatever, and put a word in for me at B Street Theater, which is where I got my equity card. I didn't have to go through any of the steps that you're supposed to have to go through to get your equity card, which you're supposed to have to earn hours and stuff like that. The artistic director, Buck Busfield, he was like, if you do the play, I'll make you equity. And I was like, okay. So all of a sudden I'm an equity actor, and doing all these plays in Sacramento. And then I ended up doing A Raisin in the Sun with Steve Harris and Billy Eugene Jones. And that was a phenomenal experience. I played Beneatha, and it was one of my favorite roles I've ever played. And Steve Harris's manager came from Innovative out of LA, came down to see the play and wanted to meet with me. So I drove my little cougar down to LA to meet with them. Of course, they didn't sign me because the rest of the agents were like, she ain't got shit on this resume. Like, we ain't signing her. So, but it gave me the courage I needed to move to LA. I was like, well, if an agent from LA came to Sacramento to see a play and wanted to meet with me, I must have something, So shoot, I'm about to be 25. Like, I'm almost 30. I'm getting old. Let me get down to LA, to pursue this thing. So I saved up my little money, went down to LA, reconnected with my high school sweetheart, ended up getting married I was in LA a year and I was already married. And so trying to navigate that and not lose sight of my career, because that's why I moved to LA. Yeah. I didn't move to LA to get married and have kids. Right. Like, that wasn't even my... Like, I don't know if I'm weird or what, but I just was never that girl that was like, oh my God, my wedding, I can't wait until I get married. No shade to anybody who has did that as a kid, but that wasn't me. Like, I wasn't picking out my wedding dress and planning my wedding when I was 9,
like 10 years old, yes.
Yeah, I wasn't. And I just always knew, like, one day I'll get married and I'll have kids, know? So I did. Or I got married, and then was pursuing my career. I did a Chitlin Circuit play with Tisha Campbell, Shantae Moore, Guy Torrey, Dave Hollister. We did one of them Chitlin Circuit plays and stuff, and toured around, so that was cool. And then I ended up doing The Princess and the Frog. I had also booked some commercials, but I did the video reference for Princess Tiana, which was a really cool experience. But, stuff was just slow, I didn't have an agent when I moved there. I didn't have a manager. Like,
so
everything.
You're literally navigating it yourself.
Yeah. Everything was grassroots for me. I had no connections like that. I think a second cousin had an agency, so she took me on. Sheba took me on for some commercial stuff or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But it was really brick by brick, just having faith in the Lord and believing that this is what I'm supposed to do. I started working on my one-woman play with Anthony and started developing that. After I had Jackson, we put it up, and my friend Amber Riley was really impressed with the fact that I put up a one-woman show. So she talked to her agents about it. They didn't even see the play, but they signed me just because I had enough gumption to create my own one-woman show. They were like, she's cool, like, just for doing that. So yeah, we want to sign you. So I got my first like legit theatrical agent from that. Wow. And it was just very slow. Like, I was trying to get, roles on television, but I had no TV credits. So if you have no TV credits, they don't want to hire you. But in order for them to hire you, you have to have a TV credit. So it's like this catch-22, And then I was performing live with For the Record at Rockwell Table and Stage for $50 a show. Bringing in my own clothes from home for my costumes. We would bring our own clothes from home, shoes for costumes, perform our butts off, singing and dancing on top of bar tables, for $50. But after I ate lunch that day and paid for gas, then I didn't have no more money. I was paying them to perform. But it was a great time in my life. Like, I was figuring out who I was as an artist. I was building a community of artists. I was getting my name out there as somebody who could sing and act, but I wasn't making no money.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for me. And, I had moved all the way from home, and, you think after a few years of being in LA, something would pop for you, and it just wasn't popping, So it wasn't until 10 years later, from when I moved to LA, that I finally got like a legit, like a real opportunity, and that was through John Singleton, God rest his soul, with Rebel, and I had my own show on BET, which came out of the blue. I only had 2 TV credits.
Yeah, and that's still insane. Look at that jump. And it took.
Listen, the story of my life, I compare my life to a pebble in a what's it called? Slingshot. Slingshot. I have a slingshot anointing on my life, where God literally puts me in a slingshot and pulls me back, where it looks like I'm getting further away from where I need to go.
Right.
And then he just lets me go, and I'm like,
and then jumping to have your own show on BET is crazy.
That doesn't happen. Yeah. I had 2 TV credits before that. A guest star on Super Fun Night, and a 2 lines on on Mulaney, and then all of a sudden I have my own TV show. Like, what?
Yeah.
So I know this is the lane I'm supposed to be in. There were times I wanted to quit. There were times after Rebel, I was devastated after Rebel. It only got 1 season. They didn't really even tell me it got canceled. I just never heard anything else, Yeah. So that was devastating for me, and I went into a depression after that. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I'm just going to be that girl that was on that one show. What was that show? What happened to her?
Yeah, exactly.
What was that show? The girl that she had the fro. Oh, yeah, Rebel. What happened to her? That's what I thought, And I'd be like, Lord, if there's something else I should be doing with my life, just show me. And all I would see was a brick wall, So I knew, like, okay, something else is I guess gonna happen,
right.
And so I just kept going, no matter.
That's the part that's fascinating, is that you just kept going and kept the faith the entire time. Because I live from an outsider, like, sometimes when it was down bad, like, you would go so long without something.
Yeah.
And then it's like, boom, just like you said.
I had Rebel, I thought my career was going somewhere. And then I didn't work for 2 years after that.
Yeah.
And then right before, like, after that, I think the next thing I got was Snowfall. And then John died, like, a month after he cast me in Snowfall. And then I was like, but he was the only person that saw me.
Yeah, he could see it so early.
Like that's how I felt. Like he was the only person in this industry that saw who I was and my talent, and he's gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just like, dang. You know, it was just kind of, it was devastating. But the crazy part is, a week before he died, we were at his kid's birthday party, and I was like, John, you guys gonna bring me back on Snowfall? He was like, yeah, I'm gonna try to make your role like a recurring role or whatever. He was like, yeah, but you gonna book something else before we get to that. And I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, you finna book something. A week and a half later, he died. And then 3 months after that, I booked Deputy on Fox. And I was another lead role, series regular role on that. Did that show, and then the pandemic hit, and we got canceled again. And I was like, well, I didn't take it so hard that time. Yeah. But they also told me. The show got canceled. So I didn't have to like sit around waiting for someone to tell me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what, it's the pandemic anyway. You know, I can't work anyway. And then in the midst of the pandemic, I got Chicago Med, and then they took me off of Chicago Med and put me on organized crime. So my journey is very unique. People ask me all the time, oh, how'd you get to where you are? There is no formula for a creative type of journey. You know, you just have to keep the faith. It's really who sticks it out the longest. Right. Like, to be honest, like, are you going to be there at the end of the day, or are you going to fall off? It's a lot of people that are like, you know what? This ain't for me.
Right.
And I don't blame them.
Stopped probably wouldn't have made it as far as you did. Probably would have stopped the minute any of these things.
First of all, they would have stopped once they got married and had a kid.
Yes.
They were like, you know what? I'm good. I have a husband. I have kids. Yeah. I'm fine. You know? So when people ask me, I said, listen, if this is not really what you want to do, if you can think of something else you want to do, do that. Right. If you say, I want to be an actor, but I also could be a scientist. Be a scientist. Go that route. Go that route. You know what I'm saying? Because it's more sure than going this route. You gotta be a little cuckoo, just a little bit.
And like looking forward for, let's say, like the next 5-10 years, do you see yourself still acting, or is there some place that you want to transition into?
The next 5-10 years, yes, I definitely see myself acting, but I see myself doing other things on top of it. So I would love to be directing in 10 years. I would love to be producing, you know, TV shows, movies. I have ideas, of course, that, you know, I've written some things, you know. But also I just have a desire to tell certain types of stories, you know, for women of color, people of color. So I would love to have like an overall deal with, you know, a network or a streaming service or whatever, where I can find those projects and, you know, put those projects into the world. So yeah, acting, I will always want to act. You know, I still want to do Broadway. I haven't done that yet, you know, so I'll always want to act, but there's some behind the scenes things that I definitely want to do as well.
Throughout your time and all your career, what are any insults or challenges that have kind of stuck with you? And what did you do when they would come? Really anything that happened to you, maybe when you're acting, somebody said something to you that did stick with you, somebody above you, your heroes, they always disappoint. So sometimes if you met someone and they said something and that really did stick with you, did it ever set you back, or how have you in life like taken on those challenges and insults?
I think in college, you know, in college being the only black woman in the department was tough. One of my professors, I was doing I was in a Shakespeare play. I can't even remember the play now, but I was playing like the princess in the Shakespeare play, and I did my makeup or whatever, and I put on like a fuchsia color lipstick or something, and she just said, your lips are too big to wear that color. The princess is supposed to be beautiful.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I am beautiful, and I'm not changing my lipstick color.
Period.
The only thing I didn't say was bitch.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know where that confidence just came out of me. Like I'm not looking at my full lips with color on them, and I'm not going to ascribe to what you're saying about that not looking beautiful because I have full lips, you know? There was also a situation in my directing class where we had to direct a scene in our class. We had to cast 2 people from our class to be in the scene. So everybody was supposed to direct a scene, and then everybody was supposed to be in a scene, at least. So I chose my 2 people. All it was white kids in my class, but I wanted to do a piece from August Wilson, the piano lesson. So I cast 2 white people and made them do August Wilson, because I was like, we got to do y'all shit all the time, so you gonna do our shit. And so I was so excited about directing, and I was killing it. Like, our scene was the bomb. Like, I was so proud of myself. Like, they did a great job. It was exciting to see them struggle with our material, because we have to put ourselves in their world and their material all the time. And so it felt good to watch 2 white actors feel out of place in a world and have to figure out how to make it work for them, you know? And so we were having the best time. And so they did their performance. I got an A, whatever. And so then a friend of mine, her name was Penny, white girl. She was cool. She was like, Danielle, she's like, I just want to tell you, some of our classmates are in the green room saying you're going to fail directing. And I'm like, what? Like, first of all, how would they know my grade? Yeah. So I marched up to my professor's room, like, excuse me, I know you're not sharing my grade with other people, with my classmates, whatever. And she's like, no, I would never do that. She's like, well, they're probably saying that because you weren't in a scene. And I said, oh, I wasn't in a scene because I wasn't put in a scene. Yeah. I wasn't cast in a scene. Right. She's like, what? I wasn't cast in a scene. Like, I cast my scene. Every time you said who's not casting a scene, I raised my hand. Nobody casted me in their scene. Some people were cast multiple times in scenes. Right. So, of course, she's a white lady. She starts crying. I'm like, bitch, why are you crying? I should be crying.
Right, you should be the one. Yeah.
I'm sitting up here consoling this bitch. It's okay. What the fuck? And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I completely... So then she gives me an A for that part of it, and then has a talk with the class, which wasn't even like a real talk, or whatever. So those things stick with me, In my professional career, my whole experience with BET sticks with me. And I will probably have to have this conversation on another podcast episode. But, it's hard navigating the industry. It's hard knowing if you fit in, how you fit in, where you fit in. I don't feel like I fit in to this day. I don't know if I ever will. That might just be a part of the mantle on my life, and I'm okay with it. But I'm going to keep doing what I do. I'm going to keep being who I am, So that's all I can do.
Right. So you played a bunch of different characters. Which character would you want to dedicate this podcast episode to?
I would say... You know what? I would dedicate this podcast episode to a character I played from the Colored Museum. This was one of the first monologues I ever learned in college or whatever. And her name was Topsy Washington. And the reason why I would dedicate this episode to her is because the essence of that character is kind of like what this episode or what this podcast is about, which is being authentically who you are, accepting who you are in all your shades, in all the seasons of your life, I haven't done this monologue in a long time, but at the very end of it, she says, So here all this time, I thought we gave up our drums. But nah, we still got them. They're here in my hair, my style, my smile, my God, my eyes, and everything I need is right here, connecting me to everybody and everything that has ever been. So don't waste your time trying to label or define me, because I'm not who I was 10 years ago or 10 minutes ago. I am all of that and then some. And whereas I can't live inside yesterday's pain, I can't live without it. So like that part of the monologue is essentially what I'm trying to talk about in these episodes. You know, I'm not what I was 10 years ago. I'm not what I was when I started this episode.
You're a different person.
I've already changed. I've already changed. You've already changed, you know? And I think if we just keep embracing ourselves throughout our lives, we'll have a much richer and fuller life than trying to pin ourselves in these boxes and be things for other people or for society or whatever. Right. Like, just learn to embrace who you are, where you are, and love all of the versions of yourself, all the places you've been, all the people you've been.
It's beautiful.
All the women I